Greetings, friends around the world. This is another apparition this afternoon to Dr. Ndomo Melingi Therese. Let us read what inspiration we got after showing us the holy couple and two persons in front of them, which means Jesus Christ and Mary, where it is shown there. The Lord showed me two persons. Yesterday we have one person, today two. And I just opened this lost Bible. And we have the lost Hebrew scriptures, lost writing of the prophets. Let me read it is on page 94. Visions of Ezra. The Apocalypse of Ezra and the Vision of Ezra belong to a number of writings centered on the biblical figure of Ezra, who restored Judaism after the return of the exiles from Babylon in the late 6th century BCE. All these works depend on the Fourth Book of Ezra, which means the Second Book of Esdras or Ezra, one of the biblical Apocrypha. In a way that at times recalls the book of Job, both works focus on the issue of divine justice. Ezra is conveyed to heaven and also to Tartarus, which means hell, where he sees the torments of sinners. You can see extra opposite. No, it is a C extra opposite. We will go there later. In heaven, he asks God why he created humans with the capacity to sin, so that they will inevitably incur divine punishment. God replies that Adam was created perfect, but also with free will, which enable him and all humans after him to disobey God. If people sin, therefore, it is their own fault. But Ezra dares to say that Adam's fall was really the fault of God, whose justice is arbitrary, a charge to which God makes no answer. See extra below. We will see extra below. These blooming speculations are balanced by the description of God as merciful and long-suffering, at least toward those who repent of their sins, And the works also depict the paradise that is the reward of the righteous. Above all, Ezra represents the concept that the righteous can intercede on behalf of sinners. He persistently prays to God to show mercy to the wicked, and it is hinted that his petitions do not go wholly unregarded. In their present forms, the Apocalypse and Vision are clearly Christian compositions, but they reflect a period when the church was still in close contact with its Jewish heritage, and the distinctively Christian or Jews elements are not always easy to discern. The Christian contribution is clearest in the long description of the Antichrist in Tartarus, while the residents of the heavenly paradise include Peter, Paul, Luke, and Matthew from the New Testament. Okay, let's see from the Apocalypse of Ezra chapter 2. The data of the title Greek Apocalypse of Ezra, original data of composition 2nd to 9th centuries CE, original language Greek, provenance unknown, earliest extant manuscript 15th century CE Greek. Let us read. Where are your former mercy? Where are your former mercies, O Lord? Where your long sufferings? Where your long sufferings? And God said, as I made night and day, I made the righteous and the sinner, and it were fitting to conduct yourself like the righteous man. And the prophet said, who made Adam, the protoplast, the first one? And God said, my immaculate hands, and I placed him in paradise to guard the region of the tree of life. Good. And the prophet said, why are we now separate from it? And God said, since he who established disobedience made this man sin. And the prophet said, was he not guarded by an angel? And how was the deceived who was guarded by angels, whom you commanded to be present whatever happened? Attend also to what I say. If you had not given him Eva, the serpent would never have deceived her. If you save whom you wish, You will also destroy whom you wish. Now, the second part is Visions of Ezra. From the Vision of Ezra, verse 1 to 11. I read. Ezra prayed to the Lord, saying, Grant me courage, O Lord, that I may not fear when I see the judgments of the sinners. And there were granted to him 7 angels of hell, who carried him beyond the 70th grade in the infernal regions. And he saw fiery gates, and at these gates he saw 2 lions lying there, from whose mouth and nostrils and eyes proceeded the most powerful flames. The most powerful men were entering and passing through the fire, and it did not touch them. And Ezra said, Who are they who advance so safely? The angels said to him, They are the just whose repute has ascended to heaven, who gave alms generously, clothed the naked, and desired a good desire. And others were entering that they may pass through the gates, and dogs were ripping them apart, and fire was consuming them. And Ezra said, Who are they? The angel said, They denied the Lord and sinned with women on the Lord's day. And Ezra said, Lord, have mercy on the sinners. Data is titled the Vision of Ezra. Original date of composition 4th to 7th centuries CE. Original language Greek. Provenance unknown. Earliest extant manuscript 11th century CE in Latin. Now, we have below the dream of Dante being killed by an eagle from a manuscript of Divine Comedy in Dante between 1265 to 1325, whose description of hell, purgatory, and paradise were directly influenced by the vision of Ezra. It is a picture. Then the Lord gives us the Apocalypse of Ezra, the lost Hebrew scriptures, lost writings of the prophets, page 96 to 97. The Apocalypse of Ezra really belongs with the Ezra tradition, and the name Shadrach is something of a plus. It is the Greek form of Shadrach, who in Bible is one of the 3 young Jewish men into the fiery furnace for refusing to worship an idol. You will see that in Daniel chapter 3. An angel saved them from the flames, and this may have led the author to think of Shadrach as someone with access to the angelic world. But perhaps Shadrach is simply a corruption of Esdras or Ezra, the Greek for Ezra. The book certainly has many similarities with the Apocalypse and Vision of Ezra. See page 94, 95. We already read. And shares all their main motives. For example, Shadrach ascends to heaven, questions God, and discusses the creation of Adam. However, the Apocalypse of Shadrach also has its own distinctive character. As they have survived, Shadrach and the two Ezra writings are all Christian in character, but in the case of Shadrach, it is only at the beginning and the end of the work that Christian ideas and language are unquestionably present, and even here they often do not penetrate very deeply. Christ appears only as the one who is sent to take Shadrach's soul to paradise, but it looks very much as though his name has simply replaced that of the Archangel Michael, who performs this function in other works and features elsewhere in the book. The opening chapter of Shadrach is a homily on the primacy of love, largely modeled on the famous passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It was probably an originally quite separate work, added because God's love is a prominent theme in Shadrach. Elsewhere, there seems to be a reference to Jesus' parable of the prodigal son in Luke 15. But the lesson drawn from it in Shadrach is so opposite that of the gospel that it is likely to be a Jewish version of the same story. See extract opposite. Here we have a picture, Shadrach and his companions in the fire, right? And the parable of the prodigal son on left are depicted in this window by John Piper in 1903 to 1902 to 92. Aldeburgh Church, Suffolk in England. Now, page 97 says, the Apocalypse of Shadrach. First, the ethics of Shadrach. The main concern of the Apocalypse of Shadrach is ethical and religious teaching. There is one remarkable passage where Shadrach, faced with death, utters a long lament for the beauty of the human body, which must now be confined to the grave. See second extract below. We will read later. Above all, the author stresses God's mercy and compassion and his wish to do everything possible to allow sinners to repent. Although, if they do not, they must face judgment. There is also a pronounced universalistic note. Quote, God grants salvation even to good Gentiles. Unlike other works, such as the Vision and Apocalypse of Ezra, the Apocalypse of Shadrach does not deplore God's gifts to humanity of free will, which brings with it the capacity to sin. For Shadrach, free will springs from God's love for human beings. He is patient and long-suffering with them and sends angels to guide them in making the right choices in life. Let us read now from the Apocalypse of Ezra, chapter 6. I quote, God said to Shadrach, be it known to you that everything which I commanded man to do was within his reach. I made him wise, and I made him wise and the heirs of heaven and earth, and I subordinated everything under him, and every living thing flees from him and from his face. Having received my gift, however, he became an alien, an adulterer, and sinner. Tell me, what sort of a father would give an inheritance to his son, and having received the money, the son goes away, leaving his father, and becomes an alien and in the service of aliens? The father then, seeing that the son has forsaken him and gone away, darkens his heart, and going away, he retrieves his wealth and banishes his son from his glory, because he forsook his father. How is that I, the wondrous and jealous God, have given everything to him, but he, having received them, became an adulterer and a sinner? Full stop. Now, from the Apocalypse of Ezra, chapter 11, the data is title, the Apocalypse of Ezra, the word of Ezra. Original data of composition, CA 150 to CA 500 CE. Original language, Greek. Provenance, uncertain. Earliest extant, manuscripts, 15th century CE Greek. Let us read from the Apocalypse of Ezra chapter 11. Ezra said, quote, O wondrous head, ornamented like heaven, O sunlight upon heaven and earth, your hair is known from Tema, your eyes from Bosra. But as soon as it falls in the earth, it is unrecognizable. It is unrecognized. O fingers, beautified and adorned with gold and silver, the three joints stretch the palms, and they gather good things together. But now you have become strangers to this world, O feet, so swift and well-moving. Now, suddenly you are to remain unmoved. O head, hands, and feet, till now I have held you fast. O beautiful body, hair shed by the stars, head like heaven adorned. O face anointed with sweet oil, eyes like windows, a voice like a bugled sun, a tongue which talks so easily. I bear well trimmed, a body adorned, light-giving, elegant and renewed. Yet now, after falling with the earth, your beauty beneath the earth is unseen. Now, we have the Testament of Job on page 98, and the title is The Lost Hebrew Scriptures, Lost Writings of the Prophets. The Testament of Job. Let us read. The data is titled The Testament of Job. Original date of composition 1st century BC, 1st century CE. Original language probably Greek. Provenance Egypt. Earliest extant manuscript 5th century CE Coptic. Let us read the Testament of Job. As the title suggests, the Testament of Job belongs to the Testament genre, in which praise for exemplary moral behavior in general and for one virtue in particular. In this case, patience or endurance are expressed by a dying sage to his offspring just before his death and burial. However, there is no trace of the apocalyptic concepts that are typical of testaments. While the section on moral behavior is very brief and mentions only one's duty to give alms and to avoid foreign marriages. On the other hand, the Testament of Job contains lively narrative in the style of Midrash Agadah, the Jewish method, of interpretation in which a biblical text is retold and expanded as a means of deriving new insight from it. The Testament falls into two sections corresponding to the two distinct parts of the book of Job. The first deals with Satan's attack on Job. The theme of the opening prose narrative in the biblical book, which the author fills out with a mass of legendary details. Satan's hostility is provoked by Job's destruction of a heathen temple, a feat which elsewhere is attributed to Abram, and the Bible account of Job's wealth and generosity is greatly expanded. Although, as in the Bible, Satan has to obtain God's authority for his attack on Job, he is depicted as a definitely hostile figure, so that in effect God is absolved the responsibility for Job's misfortunes. In the Bible, Job passively accepts his afflictions, and the author of the Testament certainly stresses his patience throughout. But the work also represents Job contending with Satan in what is described in terms of an athletic context in 4 successive scenes. Satan confronts Job, but is unable to get the better of him until he finally has to admit defeat. Job's endurance wins the day, and this is the author's main message, as summarized by Job himself. I quote, "My children, you also must be patient in everything that happens to you, for patience is better than anything." Full stop. The second part of Testament, as in the Bible, is concerned with the visit of Job's friends, Job's comforters, Eliphaz, Bildad, Sophar, and Elihu, who here are said to be kings. Most strikingly, barely anything corresponds to the Bible called Job's repeated remonstrance and challenges to God. At the outset, Eliphaz utters a lament over Job's sorry state, in response to which Job affirms the certainty of his vindication by God. Eliphaz concludes that their attempts to help Job by discovering what he has done to deserve his suffering are a waste of time. However, 2 of his companions still try to help Job. Baldad questions Job to determine whether or not he is sane, and Sophar offers a diagnosis, and medical assistance by the royal physicians, to which Job responds that, quote, I quote, my healing and treatment are from the Lord. Full stop. After this, heavenly voice convinces the kings that they are in error in seeking to discover the reason for Job's fate. They turn on the fourth member, Elihu, who has remained obdurate, and chant a taunting hymn against him, announcing God's condemnation upon him. Finally, Job is restored to an even greater prosperity than before. Now we have following from the Testament of Job, chapter 46 and 48 to 50. Let us read. Job brought 3 multicolored cords, whose appearance was such that no man could describe. And he gave each daughter a cord, saying, place this about your breast, so it may go well with you all the days of your life. Stop. Thus, when the daughter called Hemera arose, she wrapped it around her own cord, and she took on another heart. No longer minded toward earthly things, but she spoke ecstatically in the angelic dialect, sending up a hymn to God in accord with the hymns of the angels. Then Kezia bound her on, and her mouth took on the dialect of Arcos, and she praised God for the creation of the heads. 3 point. Then the other one also, named Almatea's horn, bound on her cord, and her mouth spoke ecstatically in the dialect of those on high. She spoke in the dialect of cherubim, glorifying the master of virtues by exhibiting their splendor. We are reading page 98 and 99 of the book, The Lost Bible, Forgotten Scriptures Revealed, wrote by J.R. Porter. Now let us read page 100 and 101. The Lost Hebrew Scriptures, Lost Writing of the Prophets, the Sibylline Oracles. The female prophets, known as Sibyls, were famous throughout the ancient Greco-Roman world and beyond. The word Sibyl may originally have referred to a particular person, but after ca. 350 BCE, it came to denote any one of a number of women seers who ecstatic utterances foretold the calamities that would befall humankind. Sibyls were usually represented as old women, and many collections of prophecies were attributed to them. Several of these compilations, which were primarily political propaganda, were of Jews and early Christian origin and were gathered together in the present Sibylline oracles, an extensive collection of 14 books. Not surprisingly, the Sibylline oracles stand somewhat apart from the rest of the pseudepigrapha. Like all Sibylline prophecies, they are written in Greek hexameters, quite different from the Semitic poetical forms characteristic of the Bible and Jews' tradition. They sometimes refer to biblical personalities and events, especially the flood, which serves as an image of cosmos destruction. But these are outweighed by the more frequent references to recent history, which often allow the date and setting of the writing to be discerned. The oracles sometimes present the Sibyl as a Jewish figure, but allusion to her pagan origins are much more common. From a Jewish point of view, it was clearly of greater value to demonstrate the Gentiles that one of their own highly esteemed prophets not only taught just a minute. Okay. Just, we say, not only taught the tenet of Judaism, monotheism, high ethical standards, and the temple worship, but also uttered frequent denunciations of pagan idolatry and moral laxity. See extract opposite. Speculation on the end of present world is a central theme in most of the oracles, focusing on predictions of cosmic destruction and the renewal of the world through a great universal monarch. Similar hopes were common in Greco-Roman world, and the biblical flood is often linked with the widest spread pagan idea of a great universal conflagration. It is often difficult to penetrate to the precise meaning of the historical allusion in the sibilants and the problems are well exemplified in Book 3. The main portion of the book is taken up with apocalyptic material, oracles against many different nations, and descriptions of the destruction of the world, the day of judgment, and the appearance of God's final kingdom. Here, as elsewhere in Sibylline books, history is presented in a stylized pattern, and oracles are often presented with no clear connection because the book is essentially a collection of individual oracles of different periods. However, Book 3 is significant because both its place of origin and date can be determined with some certainty. Its concern with Egypt clearly shows that it was compiled there, as indeed were about half of the Sibylline books. Its notably conciliator attitude toward the Gentiles, see box page 100, can be seen to reflect the sophisticated Hellenized Judaism of Egypt's capital, Alexandria. But the book also shows evidence of a more popular strand of Judaism, which identified with the Egyptians in their resistance to foreign imperialism, particularly the threat posed by Rome. The book expresses a remarkable degree of loyalty to Egypt's ruling Ptolemaic dynasty, and one oracle speaks of the vengeance which will be exacted on Rome by the mistress, a reference to the famous Queen Cleopatra 7, who ruled between 51 and 30 BCE, and the godless Isis, with whom Cleopatra identified herself. A later oracle in Book 3 seems to reflect the widespread grief and disillusionment after Egypt's defeat by the Romans at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. Here, Cleopatra is simply a woman and a widow who has brought only disasters. Even more strikingly, Book 3 identifies one of the Egyptian monarchs with the coming messianic ruler, who in Jewish belief will usher in the perfect kingdom of the final age. He is called a king from the sun, an Egyptian royal title and seventh king, the seventh ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, probably Ptolemy IV Philometor, ruled between 180 to 145 BCE, who came into conflict with Antiochus IV Epiphanes, one of the Jews' most bitter foes. See page 28. Most of Book 3 probably dates from the later years of Ptolemy IV and forms the earliest part of the Sibylline oracles. Now, from the Sibylline oracles, Book 3, line 1 to 7 and line 573 to 598, let us read. Blessed Heaven One, who thunders on high, who has the cherubim as your throne, I enter you to give a little rest to me, who have prophesied unfailing truths, for my heart is tired within. But why does my heart shake again? And why is my spirit lashed by a whip, compelled from within to complain an oracle to all? But I will utter everything again, as much as God bids me, say to men. There will again be a race of pious men, the Jews, who attend to the counsels and intention of the Most High, who fully honor the temple of the great God with drink offering and burnt offering and sacred hecatombs. And down they lift up holy arms toward heaven. From their beds, always sanctifying their flesh with the water and honor only the immortal who always rules. And then their parents, greatly surpassing all men, they are mindful of holy wedlock, and they do not engage in impious intercourse with male children, as do Phoenicians, Egyptians, and Romans, Spartians, Greeks, and many nations of others. We are on page 103. Now down we can stop here, and I will take another video because the disorders have started. Thank you, Lord. God bless all of you. We